Namaskar, welcome everybody to another episode of Kahani Kashmir Ki. To Sarni Meon yani Deepika Zutshi hun Hat Namaskar. We thank you very much for joining us here today because we have a very, very special treat for you today. I'm very excited to have two very, very eminent people on my show today, and we are going to dive into the show without wasting any time so all of you can get the wonderful conversation that we are going to have today. So welcome to the show, Vivek Agnihotri. I give you a hearty welcome to Kahani Kashmir Ki. And also a very, very warm welcome to Dr. Surinder Kaul. Dr. Kaul, welcome to the show. Welcome to Kahani Kashmir Ki. Thank you for joining me here today. I'm going to do a very quick bio and then we'll dive into the questions. So Vivek needs no introduction. We all know him as the eminent director in the Bollywood industry, and we've enjoyed some of his previous movies, and we all know that there is a huge buzz around the latest upcoming movie, The Kashmir Files. We've all watched the Tashkent Files before, which was definitely one of my recent personal favorite movies. And now with the upcoming Kashmir Files, I know there's a lot of buzz, not only within the Kashmiri community, but within the country and within the world, is as to the curiosity, the information, the new way the story is going to be presented. So Vivek needs no introduction. He's the eminent director of that movie. Let me introduce Dr. Kaul to you, which a lot of people may or may not know. I know he's a very eminent personality in the Kashmiri Pandit community, but outside of the community, for all of you who are watching, Dr. Kaul is a practicing physician and a Kashmiri Pandit community leader based out of Houston, USA. And he's also the founder of the Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora, which is the only civil society. And please note that I'm not saying it's an organization. It's the only civil society of Kashmiri Pandits all around the globe. And I'm very proud that Dr. Kaul is here with us today to talk about the work of the Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora and also the organization's participation within this Kashmir Files context. So welcome to both of you, and I'm going to dive right into the questions. Vivek, I'm going to start with you first. Tell me a little bit about how did the idea for the movie, The Kashmir Files, germinate? How did it come to you, and how did it go from being, just an idea to fruition?
Okay, so thanks for your kind words about me. I don't know how much I deserve. But as far as a filmmaker, my journey as a filmmaker is concerned, not even once I had ever thought that I would end up making a film on Kashmir. So, I have lots of ideas about various subjects, controversial subjects or research oriented, but never thought about Kashmir because there's been a kind of a mindset in filmmaking industry. I'm saying filmmaking industry because whether it's Hollywood or so-called Bollywood or Tamil, Telugu, any industry for that matter. As far as Kashmir is concerned, there has been a mindset that in Kashmir, the army is wrong. And, and the so-called resistance is right. That's been a mindset. And that mindset doesn't work for me very much. So if you look at even the love stories which were made after the terrorism, like Rosa. Okay, in that also you see indirectly there is a kind of that the army is not right and the state is not right. Then subsequent films, Mission Kashmir, Heather, and all these, they justified militancy and terrorism, and they basically directly, softly, indirectly criticized. So I never thought, and I was never close to Kashmir's cause, and I had no need to research. I knew as much as any other Indian knows. Now, but sometimes what happens in life that you are destined to do something, and most of us are not being able to do it because we don't meet the right person. That's why Indian philosophy, there is a very famous saying that कि आपके घर का कोई भी दरवाजा जब एक भिक्षु आके दरवाजा खटखटाता है तो उसको हमेशा ईश्वर के रूप में देखना चाहिए. You never know when the God comes knocking. So you should. And the second thing is, if God comes knocking and you realize there is God standing at your door, but then what do you do with it if you're not ready to do something like that? So therefore, one should always be preparing himself or herself, to for that opportunity. So in my case, that happened. And whatever I'm saying right now is not the marketing or PR or press interview jargon. I'm saying, telling you honestly. So the credit goes to Dr. Surinder Kaul, because at the time when I was ready to deal with such a complex subject, I had too much of information about socio-political structure of India. I had a lot of knowledge about it and about the history. So when I met him in Houston in a chance meeting, it was a very chance meeting. He asked me, he said, why don't you guys make some documentary on this? And obviously, I know that documentary on this subject will not work. Few people will see. Where will it take you? But then he insisted, and he said something to that effect, that if you won't do it, then who else will do it? Now, when somebody says that if you don't do it, who else will do it, puts a lot of responsibility on you. And if you are an honest person with integrity, then it also makes you think about your own conscious living. So when I was coming back, I started thinking about it, and I realized that the problem with Kashmir was that whenever we think of Kashmir, we think about it only in political terms, because Kashmir's story has been fed to us only because of politics.
Correct.
Right? We talk about it because politicians talk during elections. We talk about it because journalists give it a political flavor. Internationally, it is all politicized. But nobody knows the human side of Kashmir. And when we talk about the human side, then it transcends the communities. Obviously, it's a religious, communal, civilizational war, but then it transcends that. And you look at basically the pain and suffering of Kashmiris, and which is part of India. And that can be anybody, that can be a Hindu, that can be a Buddhist, that can be a Christian, that can be a Sikh, that can be anybody, or a police officer, or an army jawan. So anybody who was in that conflict suffers. So I said it's very important that we look at this. So one day when I was mentally prepared to do it, I discussed with my wife Pallavi, and then one day I called Dr. Surinder Kaul, and I said, yeah, perhaps I'm ready to do it, but how do I go about it? Because I would like to meet some people. He instantly said, don't worry, leave it to me, and I'll organize everything. And that's how this whole journey began.
Wow, wow. I'm going to come back to parts of what you said. I'm going to ask you some questions about it. But Dr. Kaul, I want to go back to you and hear from your perspective how your journey with Vivek started and how your journey with this project started. Because, we just heard Vivek's perspective on your persistence on, if you won't do it, who will do it? What was going on in your mind, and how did you pick to be involved in this with Vivek?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for a wonderful introduction, but I need to make a correction. I am not a leader, I am an activist.
Oh.
So I have been in the thick of the community affairs right from Kashmir, well before our ethnic cleansing and genocide happened. And after that, we were driving it along my friends all over India, and some of them went to or to US also to about the awareness plans. So what we realized that what happened with us was a big tragedy in independent India. And we saw that there is no conversation about it. Nobody knows about it. And this is not good. And this has been bothering our conscience all the time. That India's conscience is not waking up as to what has happened in independent India. So we have been trying to reach out to Bollywood directors because cinema has a very strong imprint in one's mind. But unfortunately, it was not striking the chord. And then basically, over a period of time, Vivekji was coming as one of the prominent voices in India. At that time, he associated himself with urban nexus, then Buddha in a traffic jam, Kashmir Files. And basically, he was getting involved in some very great histories which has remained hidden outside the masses of the Indian masses. I said, wow, here is the director who is going out so boldly and unearthing the issues which are bothering India. So anyhow, he has big fan following. So it was definitely a chance meeting. When he was coming, he was there in Houston, and my friends who were meeting with him just called me and told me that, Vivek ji is here. Do you want to come? And I did. I said, wow. So I'm a big fan of him for what work he has done. And I just had a meeting with him. And I did tell him that, first of all, I appreciated what work he has been doing. And that was the need of the hour. And I connected the whole Kashmir genocide and ethnic cleansing and discussed with him that there is a need for it. And initially, yes, we did discuss that. Can you make a documentary? We will do some fundraising, because we wanted to share this information outside India, in the globe, as well as for the Indian masses. And there were some discussions, and he was not outright that he will take up the subject. That I had to be very blunt. I did tell him, Vivek ji, you have done so many bold projects. If you will say no, then who do we talk to?
There is no hope.
And then basically it was a chance. Then he related to Pallavi ji and basically took some time. And then one day I'm receiving a call that, hey, I'm ready for this project. This is going to be my next project. I said, really? He said, yes. And he did tell me, I don't need your money. I am going to make a feature film about what happened there. I just jumped out and that is super. And I said that, can we do something? And that is where the journey actually, the initial spark was there. And
Correct.
What happened in these 3-4 years since 2018, as rightly pointed out by Vivek ji, and I tell it every time, it was not me. Some external forces were driving me to talk. Some external forces were acting on this. And I can confidently say, when I see this journey of last 4 years, that we were the chosen people to drive it. He was the chosen person to drive it. That is where the convergence took place. And that is where the story began. And the seed that was sown in 2018 became a big tree, and the final product is ready. So that is basically, it's very, very interesting.
Oh, great. What a great story. I love going into backgrounds of things, and you've both related your own personal sides of the story, which is so enriching to me. Vivek, I want to go back to you and ask you a little bit about the research. Your projects, we all know, are always very well researched. Kashmir Files was very well researched. This movie is extremely well researched. I've heard that as part of your research, you went and personally spoke with hundreds of Kashmiri Pandits who had faced the exodus. Tell me a little bit about a director's research process and what was going through in your head as you were researching, and how do you cull your main story and what you're going to show in a limited time on the screen from the thousands of stories and the thousands of anecdotes and the gut-wrenching experiences that people had. How does a person who goes from not knowing very much about the subject to being in the thick of this and then being able to cull out the right story that needs to be then broadcast to the world? Tell me a little bit about that research process and what happened with that.
Okay, so this film was never, like, there was not a blueprint that this is how we are going to move. This was also, again, I think it was a chance thing. Even before I spoke to, why research, this kind of a research? Even before I spoke to Surinder Kaul ji, what had happened was, when I was contemplating to make this movie, but it was very difficult because there were so many stories and there were so many incidents of killings and various kinds of uh, uh, tortures and all kinds of things. It was very difficult for me to pinpoint because I know that the moment you say you're making a feature film on Kashmir, then people also want to know that who's the hero, who's the villain, because that's how in the binaries stories are told. If you have a
Correct.
Ram, then you have a Ravan. It's always like that. And here, there are too many Ravans. In fact, everybody else is Ravan in this story except for the people who are actually suffering and nobody is listening to their voice. So, what happened once? Somebody asked me to meet a young boy from Pune. His name is Rohit Koshori, he writes. So asked him to meet me. He was Kashmiri activist, which I didn't know, and I could make out that he was a Kashmiri Pandit. Just for some work, if I can help him with films or make him assist or something. So he came to meet me. और बात करते करते ऐसे ही कुछ चला कि what Vivek ji, what are you thinking? So I said I'm thinking about Kashmir, but the problem is it's a very difficult subject to make because most of the authentic stories means which times of India and the big newspapers have printed is about uh, the atrocities of the army, and this sounds very fake to me. And there are very few stories which are like personal stories. So he started talking to me. He started talking to me about how he was 8 years old or something when all this happened, and then he suffers from PTSD. And then so मैं ज़्यादा जानता भी नहीं था PTSD वगैरह के बारे में. Then I asked him ये सब होता क्या है. Then he told me how he is not being able to sleep when it is dark for so many
Yes.
years, and he was also he had problems with sticking to one job. He couldn't commit himself to anything, and he opened his heart because he knew that I have no vested interest in that. And when I listened to that, तो मैंने उससे बोला कि भाई मुझे कुछ और लोगों से भी बात करा दो. He said you come to Pune and I'll do it. Then once I was invited to Pune for one speech which had nothing to do with this, for some Chinmay mission thing. और वहां पे वो मुझे उसने एक दो लोगों से मिला. विकास रैना है ना, सुरेंद्र जी, विकास
Yeah,
रैना,
yeah,
who is
right,
in
right.
जिनके शॉप में आके the terrorist
Yes,
killed his
whose
father.
father was killed. Yeah.
So so I met विकास रैना also briefly and I heard his story. ऐसे दो तीन लोगों से उसने मुझे मिलाया. I said, if these are true, then why the government of India did not appoint a tribunal where they put a camera, like any civilized society would put a camera, and just record these video testimonials of all the victims.
Right.
It will be catalogued and recorded. Second thing, then
Exactly.
now they can act on it. If a FIR was not filed at that time, they can act
Right.
now. And I felt if I am government of India, then that's what I would do. You know, um, that's when this whole idea came that what happens if we really. So I spoke to Surinder. I said, now we are making. So what do we do? How do we go about it? I want to interview. He said, just if you have decided, leave it to me, and we will organize everything. आप सबसे पहले तो अमेरिका से शुरू करो because we can control it here. So then we
Yes.
made 2-3 units. Then we sent one unit to Delhi and Pune and Bangalore and all these places. Then a lot of people. So in America, we did. Surendraji organized all these things. He led the campaign, a research campaign, and in different cities. Then in England, we did it. Then somebody came from Germany. In the meantime, then people got to know. So they started coming in from South Africa and other places. And then finally, I released a video and we did a small campaign. And we said, if you have any incident, anything you want to talk to us about it, then kindly tell us your story, which you can see it's still there on all my social media sites. Once we did that, then एक हुजूम सा इंडिया में बन गया. And there are so many people who till date, I mean just in the morning, कुछ 10-20 लोग तो ऐसे हैं जो कश्मीर के इशू से रिलेटेड कुछ भी होता है, I mean even वहाँ पे स्नोफॉल होता है, they keep sending me all their information, and so they became our researchers. And then I also have a very strong young research team with me. So we did all these video testimonials which run into like thousands of hours, और एक एक आदमी के 2-3 घंटे के हैं. Then we said, okay, let's not just believe in whatever people say. People get emotional and exaggerate, and let's now corroborate it with authentic information. So we picked up authentic books like Lieutenant Governor Jagmohan Ji's book. Then there are lots of other authentic books which unanimously, whether you are left or right, everybody agrees that they are good books. We picked up those books, studied them, researched them, then all the news items we picked up, then Government of India records we picked up, international media. Like, there is nothing which is left in the world, information world now, which we have not looked at and researched. And then we picked up, I said, then what is the soul of this story? What is that common thread which runs through all the stories? So we picked
Right.
up those elements which were common everywhere and which were authenticated, which were like part of the acknowledged history. And then we made this because it's a very delicate film. Extremely, we didn't want to disrespect the dead people, their families, the victims, because if they have said something, we show something else to make it filmy, do it more dramatic or underreported. Then also people get upset and they say, "Oh, you have exploited our emotions." But it's real blessing of Saraswati that when most of these people saw the movie in America, they said, this is the first time we feel that the healing process has begun. And all these people who were victims and who did interviews, and that really means that our research was very honest and sincere.
Correct. Oh, how beautiful! How beautiful. Speaking of the Right to Justice tour that you just completed in the United States, Dr. Kaul, I'm going to ask you your perspective. You know, you helped organize the tour, and you were part of the team almost, and you must have seen people and talked to people after the screenings. I've seen a lot of videos of people after the US screenings where people are crying and hugging each other and hugging you, and it's just amazing. And I'm even getting goosebumps right now thinking about and talking about it. Tell me a little bit about the Right to Justice tour from your perspective, Dr. Kaul, and your involvement, and also how did you feel as a Kashmiri Pandit when you saw other people, not only Kashmiris, but non-Kashmiris and non-Indians appreciating the movie and, finally, it clicking in their heads that this is a horrible tragedy that has gone unnoticed in the world? Tell me a little bit about your
Let me
perspective.
interject before that. He was not
Sure.
just a part, it was his brainchild. He's the architect of this tour. He conceptualized it and he initiated the whole thing. He took the lead. But then lots of great people worked on it. Without that big, huge team, it wouldn't have been possible. But this time there was a blueprint and he actually drew that blueprint.
Kudos to you, Dr. Kaul, for that. Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, I want to be honest. My activism is very spiritual. It's not for any glorification. It's not for any need. It's not for anything. It is just what happened. And Kashmir has been the cradle of civilization. And it is a common civilization. Whether we are Hindus or Muslims, it's a common civilization.
True.
Our DNA is the same. The same blood is running in there. So basically, it was a spiritual. My association with the community and Kashmir is very, very spiritual. And when they say that when something is destined to happen, वो ईश्वर दरवाजे खोल देता है. मुझ में घमंड हो कि मैंने conceptualize किया. I conceptualized it. It was my brainchild. That is absolutely wrong. When something is destined to happen, you will get those ideas. You will get those good things happening because it is destined to happen like that.
True.
So that was little clarification. It was not me. It was happening. It was destined to happen like that. Now, if you see the trajectory of Kashmir for last 32 years, Kashmir problem was Kashmiri Hindu problem. It was not an Indian problem. Yes, geopolitics was Indian problem.
True.
But the story of humanity, this tragedy was a Kashmiri Hindu problem. Our numbers are very, very small. We were not able to penetrate into the masses that we wanted to let them know what happened with us. Again, not with the intent of hate, not with the propagation of hate, but it was the part of a history, an important piece of history that had remained hidden in independent India.
True.
So when the product was ready, I discussed with Vivek ji. I said that we will conceptualize it in a way that everybody, the Indian diaspora, whether it is a Telugu Samaj, whether it is a Kannada Samaj, whether it is a Punjabi Samaj, whether it is Marathi Mandal or a Sikh Samaj or Indian Jews or Muslims, they should be part of this whole process, this whole journey. So when we started this, we approached Telugu Association, Gujarati Association, all these associations, and they were very happy to give us their logos. And when you see the logo, the template of any of the screenings, you will see 36 organizations with their logos, which says Telugu Association, Gujarati Association, Six for India. And when that thing happened, we created a big team in the US with some international people in that. That's part of GKPD, just so that they get the experience about how we are unfolding this journey in US. They will get the experience. And everyone was spot on. The way they took the ownership of this, that was amazing. And everyone, whether it was in Boston, Chicago, California, LA, everybody came in that my event should be the best event. My event should be the best event. And they worked so hard and delivered on it. So that was one aspect, that how things happened. Second thing was basically when the screening process happened, we didn't know how is it going to happen. How, because there was some discussion, do we need to hire a PR agency for this? We don't have so much money. It was the people generating a little bit of donations here and there and keeping this journey alive. And that way, when the screenings happened, I didn't see the movie. I saw the reaction when our first event in New York happened, how people reacted. And it was very organic. And I said, something is definitely right in this, that people are jumping, people are crying, people are hugging, and they are feeling so miserable. And this didn't happen only in New York, it happened in all the screenings across. I had the privilege of watching this movie in Washington, D.C., and subsequently in Austin, and then, of course, in my hometown, Houston. But when I watched this movie in Washington, D.C. for the first time, I had a lot of information about this movie, but there is a difference between when you see and when you have some information in piecemeals here and there. I was amazed. I saw, wow, this 700 years of history and beyond has been conceptualized and put in 2 hours and 50 minutes. This is the creative art. And 2 hours, 50 minutes, nobody is able to move from his chair or her chair just because it is so stunning. So it's not only the human stories, very powerfully depicted, but then the narratives of Kashmir. If anybody, a lay person who knows nothing about Kashmir and have heard about the different narratives, he will say, what are they talking about? That is the level of clarity that this movie conveys. There is no bashing. There is no bashing of any religion. There is no bashing of any country. And the pure humanitarian angle is just overflowing, so that any persecuted community, leaving aside Kashmiri Pandits, whether they are Afghani Muslims, whether they are Armenian Christians, whether they are any persecuted communities, including even Yazidis, those people came in large numbers. And even for that matter, any discriminated community, any voiceless community, any people who don't have that powerless communities, they personalize this story. And that is exactly what happened in these screenings. African Americans were speaking, they were connecting it with Black Lives Matter, Afghani Muslims were speaking, Yazidis were speaking, and all Indians were speaking. This was a magic. This was, when I saw the movie, I saw, wow, I hugged Vivek ji and Pallavi ji, and I said, what have you done? This is the this is the creative, this direction that you have given, and so blessed. I felt so proud. I felt so elated, even though in this tragedy, that this something is hearing and people are responding in such a way. That was a dream come true.
True, true. And that is the true power of storytelling, that it doesn't have to be about, one set of people. It has to appeal to a wider audience. And if it touches different people or from different walks of life, I think that to me is a successfully told story and successfully narrated story. That just seems really powerful to me. Vivek, I have a question for you. Tell me a little bit about, I haven't seen the movie myself yet, but I have seen a lot of, the promos and the motion posters. Oh my God, I'm just, again getting goosebumps even as I'm talking about the motion posters to you, because first of all, the music that you have in those motion posters and the promos. Oh my goodness. I expected some, Kashmiri type music, and it's not. It's just, music that hits you right in the gut. It's a gut punch. And it's amazing that you put that music, and I'm not a musician by any means, so I don't understand it. But to me, the powerful, the one-liners that you use in the motion posters, and through those one-liners depicting the characters in your film, and then you put that train of music in there. Oh my God, it's just amazingly powerful. Tell me a little bit about how all of that came together. Tell me a little bit about the cast and how did that come together for you. And please talk to me a little bit about the music, because that was a gut punch to me, definitely.
So, okay, so I must say only a student from a good institute can ask a question like this, because not many film journalists also ask about technical things because they don't know themselves. So I'm happy that you also come from the same institute I studied in IMC, right? So yeah, so
Yes,
which
sure.
means it's a great. I always say it's a great institute. It is undoubtedly.
Agreed.
So anyway, so first of all, the cast, as far as the cast is concerned, uh, it's always a struggle, to do casting, because we don't do regular mainstream saleable star kind of a casting. We decided a few years back. I mean, after Buddhana Traffic Jam, we decided, Pallavi and I, that as far as the casting is concerned, like Hollywood takes a lot of pride in casting Oscar-winning actors. Their main first when say, if you want to make a good film, take Oscar-winning or ask Oscar-nominated actor. But in India, we don't give due respect to national award winners. Okay, and nobody cares whether somebody has won a national award. But it was a very conscious, deliberate decision we took long time ago. And we were sitting and discussing. I said, who are good actors? When I was casting for Tashkent Files, we needed 9, 10 of them. He said, who are good actors? How do you know from different regional cinema everywhere who are the best actors? So I said, "Chal, let's look at a list of national award winners." And once we look at the list, oh my God, this is like some of the best talents in the world. Okay, not India. Trust me, this is like some of the best actors in the world. The problem is most of them are from Tamil, Telugu, Bengali, Marathi, different cinemas. They are not good in typical chocolatey looking, great looking people. We said, so what? Let's just pick up actors from here. And Tashkent Files was also full of national award winning actors. This film also is full of. So when you are dealing only with actors, so the first criteria, since you asked me about casting, was in Bollywood, mostly what happens is that the character which you write becomes the star you sign. So
Correct.
if you sign a poor professor, and if you have a Salman Khan, that poor professor will become like a handsome millionaire professor, and then stylized professor. Okay, this
Correct.
is true, and this is an accepted thing. It's not that I'm saying something controversial. That's an accepted thing. It's the image of the star. So, but we have been casting people who become the characters. So even if you are Mithun Chakraborty, no problems. You have to become the character you are playing. So once you have good cast, then half your battle is won. As
True.
far as music is concerned, this is a very technical thing, and I don't know if in India many filmmakers practice it. And since I have the freedom, since I make projects out of my own will and choice, and I don't depend on the regular financial streams, so I We struggle a lot. It takes us 4 or 5 years to make one film, you know. But then that also gives me the freedom to do whatever I want. As far as this film was concerned, the Kashmir Files. In Tashkent Files, you'll see a lot of me. There is a lot of, you'll see camera, you'll see editing, you'll see direction, you'll see the setup, you see a whole lot of things, and which also subliminally start charming you, you know, they start attracting you. But in this film, and also in Tashkent Files, there was a lot of symbolism, like Pallavi was on a wheelchair, it's like you are stuck in your own ideology and all that. In this film, first thing we said is that just let's make this film without any ego, without any professional ego, which means that nobody should be able to see the writer, director, cameraman, music director, editor, kya editing ki hai? No, nothing. People shouldn't react to the technique at all. People should just see the characters and their journey, their pain and their suffering, and therefore they should receive the message. And when you will see the film, you will realize that it's so brilliantly edited by Shang, but you will never ever feel that it's been edited. Generally, हमारे यहाँ कहते हैं कि scenes को कैसे काटो, मैं कहता हूँ काटो नीच कैसे जोड़ो. That is more important.
Oh, beautifully put.
Yes, same thing. The camera work. The only person after 15, 16 screenings who could point at camera work was a DOP from Los Angeles, from Hollywood. He was the only person who sat with me and spoke to me about cameraman. Otherwise, nobody even spoke about it because it's so silent and invisible in the entire film, you know. As far as music is concerned, it's a very interesting story. There is this music director, brilliant genius music director called Rohit Sharma. He also did music for me in Buddha in a Traffic Jam and Tashkent Files, but there was no music in that. So I told him, इसमें कोई गाने आने तो है नहीं भाई, तो बैकग्राउंड म्यूजिक कहता है मैं कर दूंगा. तो पहले उसने बोला था मैं बैकग्राउंड म्यूजिक नहीं करता हूँ, सिर्फ गाने करता हूँ. मैंने गाने आने तो है नहीं, तो वो चला गया. फिर बाद में आया था, अच्छा चलो लेट मी डू बैकग्राउंड म्यूजिक. ऐसे इसमें बैकग्राउंड म्यूजिक भी यूज नहीं करने वाला हूँ मैं. Okay, and I had spoken to an Oscar-winning music director from Italy, and I told him इसमें 4-5 minute का सिर्फ transition somewhere or the other, and especially at the end, you do a music piece for me. But then COVID happened, and all those things happened. He also got busy and all. So I said, the music तो नहीं है किसी को भी. Until the very last minute, even after we finished the entire film, film was edited. We didn't even bother about music because I knew that there is not going to be any music in this film. Music will corrupt the intensity of scene.
Right.
But he met me and he said, give me a chance. Let me just try and do something. I said, but if music is heard, then the story will be okay. He said, I guarantee you that people won't even notice there is music in the film. And that's how he came up. I showed him the film, and by the time film ended, he knew exactly what to do. He called me in a couple of days. We heard something, and that's where it was. One thing I was very clear with him. He told me, okay, I'll use this rabab and all these instruments which are played in Kashmir. I said, no.
Yeah.
We will not play any Kashmiri instrument. No way. Because the minute you do that, you localize the film, you don't internationalize it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, and this is a very obvious, and I can guarantee 9.9 directors out of 10 will be tempted to do the local flavored music. Why won't anybody do that, you know?
Exactly.
You know, if you're a Hollywood director and you're making this, 100% I can guarantee they will use Kashmiri instruments. But the minute you do that, the moment you do that, then you are committing as a filmmaker, as a storyteller. I am telling you a Kashmiri story.
Exactly.
I didn't want that. I wanted to get out of that. First of all, when I was making this film, I never even approached it as a Kashmiri story. I said it's my story. It's about me. So when I said it's about me, then I was free, liberated from these blinders, you know. So that's why you will see when the film ends, nobody in 16 screenings, except for some Kashmiri Pandit families, they also did not speak about the Kashmir. They spoke about their personal thing. But besides that, whether you have blacks or you have Latinos or Asians or whites, whoever, or all Indians, in fact, 99% of the reactions we have are people from South, from East, from West. Everybody says one thing. Quote unquote, they say, Vivek ji, I am from Andhra and I never realized it's about me. Kashmir. And it was binding, though people were crying in the theater a lot and they were speechless, stunned, feeling vacuum in their guts. Despite that, everybody says one thing, that we feel united as Indians. And to take it up further, because people don't have great vocabulary, they don't know how to articulate their thoughts.
Right.
Actually, let me tell you, people were uniting as human beings. You know,
Exactly.
people were connecting at a humanity level. People were realizing, oh my God, we are gifted with such great potential of living with harmony and understanding. What happens when these things are lacking? What happens when humanity is absent? And that scares people and they come together. You know, like in a war situation, how everybody gets united. So this
Correct.
film was actually kind of an emotional war on people's mind, you know, and that was uniting people.
Yeah. Oh, that is beautiful. And that's what I love about everything around the movie, that it's not, Kashmiri Pandit. It's a human tragedy story. And, and that's, I think, way more powerful and way more universal.
And just to put it on record, the music, when we were recording it, one thing is composing, one thing is recording it. Then I said, if we are using Philharmonic Western Orchestra, if we are using Philharmonic kind of music, which is Western classical, then we should also get it recorded by the experts who understand the nuances of that. So we got it recorded in Budapest.
Oh, nice.
And it was very difficult during COVID times, but then because of technology, we could achieve it. So the huge orchestra recorded it in Budapest. And after recording, I have it on video. Some people, while recording, there's one girl who was playing cello, and she stopped and she started crying. And it's on video. I have it. I will release it. And she stopped. And which is, they are professional people. It doesn't matter to them,
Right.
because the notes are so haunting. They're so hollow. So it makes you feel so helpless. There's nobody around you. Just a solo cello playing. So that, I think, was Rohit Sharma's great work.
Yeah, great, and that's what kind of hit me too. So obviously he's done a tremendous job with that. Dr. Kaul, I have a question for you, and I know you you represent the global Kashmiri Pandit diaspora. Tell me a little bit from your perspective. What would make you feel happy, post the release of the film and the success of the film? What would be a parameter of success for you? Since you've put so much of your time and effort, what will you be happy seeing? What will you say? If the movie is a commercial success, I'll be happy. Or, tell me your metric for success of your time and effort put into this project.
Yeah, my metrics will be slightly different. As Kashmiri Pandits, our tenets have been, and every meeting I do speak about it, is universal brotherhood, compassion, benevolence, pursuit of knowledge. They have always been wonderful people who have immensely contributed in India and also the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. We believe in harmony, we believe in peace. And that's how you are seeing the tragedy. But also the other part is the story of success. That despite being victim of genocide and ethnic cleansing, the community never reciprocated violence with violence.
Exactly.
Our kids, we don't teach them bitterness. We don't teach them that this happened and this is what somebody did with us and you have to take a revenge.
Correct.
These are very strong statements I'm making. And my metrics is basically, first of all, the tragedy that happened in independent India, that 500,000 people had to become refugees in their own country because of their faith. Everybody needs to be educated about it. Secondly, after education, we are, despite what happened with us, we are still talking about peace. But we are firm with what happened with us. to keep a civilization alive, it is very important for that civilization to remain connected with their roots.
True.
And for last 32 years, our roots have been snatched from us. This community will be at the verge of extinction in next 20, 30 years if it is not taken care of.
True.
And the onus of the universal brotherhood remains with the majority community, and through your program, I'm conveying it to the Muslims that it is the onus of you that if we establish the roots again, and if you facilitate that, that will be good. But if you do not facilitate that, directly or indirectly, you are supporting those elements who were responsible for our genocide and ethnic cleansing.
True.
So it has to be an automatic process because, we are not using a common brush for all the Muslims. There has been a lot of nationalistic Muslims who sacrificed, who laid their lives in Kashmir. We are not selfish. We see through their prism as well. But the common Muslims will have to stand, and their litmus test of their spirituality and their intent will be how they will facilitate the re-establishment of the root to save this civilization from becoming extinct. Government has certain things to do. They should also understand this and try to work on this direction, because if the reversal is not happening, then the whole Indian system is failing those who have such strong tenets. That is what I want to see. Besides, I wish that it's a commercial success. We want to let the world know, because global terrorism is a threat. And through this message, through this powerful cinematics, we want to do everything to educate the world community how to tackle terrorism. We attribute certain things that this guy became terrorist because his human rights were violated. We attribute causes. But here is a community who became victim of genocide and ethnic cleansing because of this whole global terrorism. But they never picked up guns.
Exactly.
They never picked up, because we believe that the world is a civilized society. We have to contribute to uplift the mankind. We have to do certain things which will help humanity. So these are the things we will help to disseminate this information at a global level, and we want it to become a global conversation. And thanks to Vivek ji for all the powerful cinematics. I know you talked about the music part. That is definitely a very, very appropriate music for this subject. But by and large, this is a silent movie. The lights, see, I'm not a technical person. I'm a lay person. But the lights, the cinematics, the raw music, it is heart touching. It's heart touching. That is the creative art that Vivek ji and Pallavi ji has brought to the fore. And that is why we feel immensely satisfied.
True. And I do feel that, thanks to projects like these, Dr. Kaul, the work that your community is doing, my community, the work that your volunteers are doing, that will now extend for, long time to come, because now it'll stay in conversations. It'll get into people's psyches and become a more of a mainstream thing and piece of knowledge, and with something to do with about, rather than just something that happened to some people back there in the valley that nobody knows about. So I think that's.
I wanted to make one addition with your permission, Deepika ji, if you allow me.
Sure.
Thousands of people were killed. Our community, brutal killings. We never got an opportunity of mass grief. What happened? People were getting killed and brutal deaths. They were going in isolation. So all these things were isolated. It took us 25 plus years to get them together, to understand the problem. Because this movie, the biggest thing that happens to the community is a healing process. And this is creating a healing process within. And basically, everybody getting an opportunity to know and convey their grief. Now, whatever we saw in the screenings, the first audience reaction, especially from the Indian diaspora, whether it is Telugu, Kannada, Punjabi, anyone, was that this thing happened in India? I don't know about it. There is that feeling of guilt that kills them, that this thing happened, we didn't do it. We receive everyday messages. How can we help you? What can we do? You suffered so much. So that is the process of healing that this movie is doing that magic.
True. Perfect. Beautiful. Very, very well said. Thank you, Dr. Kaul. Vivek, another question for you. Was there any point while you were shooting the movie that was especially poignant for you? Because, again, it's a very complex subject, very sensitive subject, and, it's very hard to keep the emotion out of it. As a director, did you ever have a conflict between your professionalism and the work that you had to do in the creative process versus the emotions, the high voltage emotions of your topic and your subject?
It has happened. It's always happened in all the movies, but this time it didn't happen. If somebody asked me, which is the most effortless work you have done in your life, I would say the Kashmir Files. And that is also, like he said, I'm also a very spiritual person, not in the typical modern materialistic spiritual way, but in a very different kind of a spiritual way. The great artists in ancient India, and this art also then moved to China. In that great ancient art, if you were to make a tree, then you go and ask your guru how to make this tree, how to paint this tree. And they would say, just go and sit in front of tree. And when you become tree yourself, just go and do it. And that's what they used to do. And that's why you will find lots of Chinese miniatures of Chinese paintings of trees. You won't even know whether you are looking at a tree or a painting. What now is called the hyper reality art today. What people are trying to do it through computers was actually done by human mind long time ago. Why I'm saying this? Because a lot of young people also listen to these shows, so they have to understand certain that the filmmaking is storytelling, or filmmaking is not just technique or vision. It is also how you feel in your life. If you go to Khajuraho or Hampi, all these, the world's best architecture in the sculpting was done because these people came, meditated in the morning. Once they became the statue themselves, they just put a rock and got the statue out. That's all. They had to get the rock out of it, and because statue was already inside that piece of stone. So and so why I'm saying is because this is exactly what happened with me. I never had to make an effort to do this film. Never ever, not even once. Because we met so many people, we lived with them, ate with them, made friends with them. I started feeling that I'm one of them, and therefore I also became one of them. Though in my case there was no felt reality, but if you sit with somebody who's mourning and just listen to that person crying on your shoulder or just put your hand for a long time, then you start feeling that pain, and somewhere you can relate to that pain. So that's what happened with me. And so it came very naturally and very effortlessly. So there was no dichotomy as far as that is. Yes, the problem comes sometimes is that it's a very lonely journey, because in any other film you can use other people as bouncing boards. In this film, I couldn't, for a variety of reasons, for secrecy, for political reasons. Also, people then start polluting your work, by putting their agenda-driven thoughts. So therefore, I had to protect this also from rest of the world, the purity of this. I had to, in fact, there are a lot of Kashmiri friends I have here. They said, "ये book देता हूँ, मेरे साथ मिलो, I'll tell you so many stories." But I had to very diplomatically, I had to keep them away, because I knew once I bring them in, they will start putting in their elements, and somewhere I'll get influenced. So that was a struggle. The second struggle, what happens is, when you're doing something, then people around you, how much they are encouraging. And it's always playing back in your mind, whether you like it or not like it, That's how human minds are constructed. So in these kind of films, everybody goes against you. Though I don't work with typical Bollywood, but I'm part of this, media also looks at you and all that. Even before you have written the first word of the script, people start saying, "Arey, ye to propaganda film hogi. Arey, ye to anti-Muslim film hogi. Arey, ye to..." So people have these conceived notions, and they start attacking you from
Exactly.
that point of
And
view.
labeling is very easy too for people. Correct.
Labeling comes very easy. People start labeling you, they start attacking you, then they come to your personal life, then to your family, then they start
Sure.
threatening you, then they use physical force, then they use ideological force, all kinds of things. Nobody wants to finance you. Then the people, the studio system, the corporate studio system also comes in initially thinking, "Acha, chalo, kuch ho jayega," but by the time film is ready, they start losing faith because they are also told the same thing by the same people, and they are not
Right.
Vivek Agnihotri, so they cannot have that kind of conviction, and I don't
True.
expect them to have that conviction. Their minds are trained to depend on a star. Now suddenly you have given them a story without any stars, and you want them to be convinced about it and say, "Okay, put in your best foot forward or put in your money in it."
True.
They don't want to do that. They are
Right.
answerable for profits, and these kind of films cannot be predicted by anybody in the world how much business they will do. So they are not being able to file their reports to their board of director. Okay, how much we should invest in marketing, how much it will make. So they also have this problem. So you have only problems around you. Nothing else. You have nobody who puts a hand on your shoulder and say, "No, no, no, this is good." You can't discuss your script. You can't discuss your finances. So like that's a problem. But then I knew what I was signing up for, so I have no complaints against that. My only problem is that all these people in Kashmir who have issued fatwa and all that, it's not that I'm scared of all those things. I
Right.
wish uh, they had spoken to me or tried to understand what I am doing. Without understanding anything, they assume, अच्छा ये कश्मीर के बाहर से आए हैं और ये तो हिंदू है तो पक्का यही होगा. And
Right.
that really hurts me sometimes, and I hope someday I will be able to show it to them and convince them that when humanity suffers, everybody suffers, not that
True.
only from people from one religion or community suffer. And it's
True.
it's a loss of the great gift of God, which is called humanity. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then, at some point you have to let your work speak for itself because, whatever you say or do, you will have 15,000 voices saying, different things to you. But then at the end of it, the courage of your own convictions would, and then of course you let your work speak for you. I think that's beautiful. And your work always speaks, my goodness, it speaks in volumes for me. I've followed your work and watched your movies, and I just am such a fan. So really appreciate the work that you're doing, and I feel so proud to be a Kashmiri Pandit today and have you, help out the community in this, unimaginably powerful way. So thank you for doing that from the bottom of my own heart personally. Before I let you go, I know we are at the end of our time. Before I let you go, one quick question. Now that this project is under your belt, all done, signed, sealed, and delivered, ready to be released, this baby is born, and now it's going to become not your baby anymore. It's going to be the world's baby now. So my question for you: have you already started thinking about your next projects? Have you moved on, and what are you thinking about, and what are you working on now?
Oh, yeah. So, see, I had announced a film called The Delhi Files, but then I had also committed to myself that I will do it only after this film, the Kashmir Files, is over, the entire campaign and everything. So now, because of COVID, it's going to get, I'm sure it's going to get postponed for some time till the time theaters open and things become better. So since I'm committed to that, so until this baby actually becomes 18-year-old and an adult to look after itself, I don't think I can even think of anything else, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year. I'll wait till the time it finds its logical end. Second thing, what has happened is that I have so much of data inside me, so much of information, stories, so many stories, which I have not been able to put on screen, and issues and arguments and conversations which I want. I very seriously want to, and that is actually a kind of a creative detox or healing for me, and I think I owe it to the world. You cannot keep so much of knowledge with you and not share it with the world.
Sure.
It is. I think it's a creative dishonesty, intellectual dishonesty. I would like to go on a lecture tour or some kind of a academic tour and speak to a lot of youngsters in India and wherever in the world, in Europe or US. I would like to do that, and whatever I have with me, I make some small documentaries and presentations, and I want to share it with the world, put it on digital websites, and whatever I could do, I would like to take all the information, knowledge, and research and put it somewhere so that it can be used by the world for in the interest of humanity.
True. You almost owe it to the next generation if you have all of this, vast fount of knowledge within you. You literally owe it to the world and the younger generation to share it with
Yeah,
them.
if I was an American filmmaker, I would have made millions of dollars out of whatever I have with me. But then the purpose of this film was never like that. And I am a very it's not that I talk about Indian philosophy. I'm very I'm it's me. It's become my nature. So Indian philosophy says knowledge has no copyright. Right? So
Yeah.
obviously knowledge has no copyright. So we'll share it with the world, and the world should know about it. Money can be made in 1 million different things. If you are blessed, you will make money enough to live comfortably.
True, true. Very, very wise words. With those wonderful words, I'm going to take leave of you today. I thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart for joining me here today on Kahani Kashmir Ki and talking about your wonderful movie, and Dr. Kaul for sharing your wonderful journey with us. I know we'll be in touch, and I wish you all the very best for the successful release of this movie. And I know it's going to touch many, many hearts, and I hope it does. I know it will, and I'm really looking forward to watching the movie. And for all you viewers out there, I say go watch the movie, enjoy the movie for the movie, but really watch the movie and internalize the message that the movie delivers, and your life will be richer for it. With those words, I thank you. I thank you very much. And to all the viewers, we will see you next time on Kahani Kashmir Ki.
Thank you
Namaste.
so much for having me.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you,
Namaste.
Deepika. And I must tell you, normally in these kind of conversations, I am always looking at the watch. Ki acha kab khatam hoga, tab khatam hoga. This is the first time I didn't realize it's been 1 hour, so it shows that you are really good. You are really good. So more power to you. Dhanyavad. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Very, very kind of you. Have a good day.